Hello, hello. So in this video, we are going to be talking if the handbook for the recently deceased was written for newly diagnosed neurodivergence. So welcome, dear reader, to the realm of the neurodivergent, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary and the everyday is an adventure. If you've recently been diagnosed as neurodivergent, you might feel like you've stepped into an alternate reality, much like the Maitlands in Beetlejuice. So imagine, if you will, a handbook that was written just for you. And it was filled with tips, insights, and a touch of humor to guide you through this new chapter. Okay? So with that in mind, let's dive into the handbook for the newly diagnosed neurodivergence. Being newly diagnosed can feel pretty overwhelming at times, but it's also an opportunity to understand yourself better and embrace your unique traits. So here's what you need to do. Embrace your uniqueness. So much like the Maitlands eventually discovered their new ghostly abilities, you'll start to uncover aspects of yourself that are uniquely powerful. And while you may not be able to throw your voice or manipulate people, you can embrace those things like the hyper-focusing, the creativity, the keen sense of observation, and all the other fun perks and sometimes downsides that come along with neurodivergence. You're also going to have to manage navigating some of those sensory sensitivities in the new world, and they can be both a challenge and a gift. So the loud noises, the bright lights, and certain textures just might become a bit overwhelming. But you can also counteract that with things like noise-canceling headphones and softer lighting and comfy clothing. When it comes to the social interactions and communication, yeah, that can be a bit tricky too, but understanding your communication style can make all the difference. So when you want to think about this, we're thinking about like a literal language and direct communication. So just like the handbook for the recently deceased offered straightforward advice, try to communicate directly and clearly. We neurodivergent folks often appreciate literal language and direct communication. Things like metaphors. I'm pretty big on sarcasm myself. Just remember at times when you're in a conversation with someone, if you need to ask a clarifying question, ask the clarifying question. And then, when you want to really have those conversations where you don't kind of have to worry about those things, connect with people who are, share your similar experiences. Just like Lydia Dietz when she connected with the Maitlands. And then on these everyday things, so routine and structure. I have both ADHD and probably autism. So there's parts of me that really appreciate having routine and structure. And there's parts of me that just kind of go insane with having too much structure. So I had to find a good balance in between to have enough predictability in my day, but to also have the room and the space to adapt that schedule as needed. And I would encourage you to do the same. I would also encourage you to find some kind of organization style. I'm not suggesting that you go full on like, oh, this needs to be labeled, this needs to be labeled. If what you have works for you right now, stick with that. It's like, I don't know, really whatever is going to work for you. Being organized, yeah, can be a bit of a struggle. Ask me how I know. But once you get into some of those little habits and keep at them, then they start sticking and you'll find yourself making those tiny baby steps, which is awesome. And then we also need to learn how to deal with the overwhelm. So overwhelm is a very common experience, but it doesn't have to take over your life. So when we break tasks into smaller steps and we're taking regular breaks and we're practicing things like mindfulness, even in our chaotic worlds, we can still find ways to regain some control and calm. You're also going to need to learn how to advocate for yourself and really just accepting who you are for all of your awesomeness, your messy parts, everything. And that is also pretty key on the steps into this journey. Be prepared to educate those around you about this. And especially, I would say, with like closer friends, family, romantic partners. So share information and resources and personal insights And this can foster empathy and support. And then you want to set really clear boundaries. And this is going to be pretty crucial for maintaining your well being, your own mental state. Communicate your needs clearly and assertively. It's not making you an asshole, it's protecting you. Okay. And don't be afraid to say no to situations that are just going to make you uncomfortable. And celebrate your progress. Acknowledge all of your small wins, and even if it may seem silly to someone else, that's okay. It matters to you, and ultimately that is what makes. And don't be afraid to look for the humor, um, because life isn't all serious. I know right now we are in a pretty contemplative time, recording this right after the big presidential election of 2024. And so right now, yeah, life is pretty serious and things might seem a little bit, like dire. But we should also try to find those pockets of humor, find those pockets of positivity. I'm not saying just, ignore everything, but look for the small things. And then also look for ways to shift your perspective. So sometimes this change in perspective can make a world of difference. And instead of viewing neurodivergence as a limitation, which society tends to push, we can look at it as a unique way of experiencing the world. So, welcome to the world of the newly diagnosed neurodivergent. This journey, much like the adventure in Beetlejuice, is filled with unexpected twists and turns, kind of like sandworms. But by understanding your unique traits, navigating social interactions, and managing everyday challenges, advocating for yourself, and maintaining this sense of humor, you can thrive in this new chapter of your life. Embrace your neurodivergence